Get up. Hello, so this video is going to be about how I overcame binge eating and how I overcame disordered eating behaviors. Just a disclaimer, if you do have binge eating disorder or any type of eating disorder, please reach out for professional help if you are struggling with an eating disorder, and I will link some resources below for you guys. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what is binge eating. So binge eating is basically when you have those episodes where you cannot stop eating. You eat past like a fullness or you're very stuffed and you just cannot stop thinking about food and you just have to keep consuming food. And those are called like binge eating episodes, at least that's what I call them. So binge eating disorder is when you binge eat at least once a week for more than 3 months, and that's when it becomes a binge eating disorder. So that's what I had for almost 4 years on and off. I did relapse a couple years ago. So I'm gonna start by talking about my story. So let's start from the very beginning. So when I was around 16 years old, I really wanted to lose weight because I was always like the chubbier girl in my class or whatnot, or like in my friends group. So I really wanted to lose weight. So I went on extreme diets, and that's what I saw online. They say you have to eat less than 1,200 calories, you have to exercise a lot. And I was doing those like workout videos at home for almost 2 hours every single day. And I was also eating less than 500 calories a day because I just kept restricting and I kept wanting to see the scale go down. So that's like the shortest version of the story, but basically after 2 months of doing that, I lost like 20 pounds in like a month and a half or so. And I developed a very unhealthy relationship with food. I couldn't focus on any relationships. Like I wasn't very close to my friends because I remember I wasn't really feeling myself. All I wanted to do is to exercise, and all I wanted to do is keep restricting my food, and I developed a very unhealthy relationship with food. And I remember I was getting sick all the time. Like I was getting sick every other week with some sort of sickness, either like a stomach flu or a cold or whatnot. It was really weird. So there was this one time where I got like a really bad stomach flu, to a point that I was really sick and I was in bed for almost 2 weeks, and I knew that enough is enough. Like I knew that something was wrong. I knew that with my very restrictive behaviors of eating and over-exercising, like my immune system was really weak. So I sort of just really tried to take the focus off from dieting and everything and just focus on myself. And at that time I was about to move from Hong Kong to Vancouver for high school. So I had like around 2 months period during that time to kind of like just focus on myself and focus on my relationship with my friends in Hong Kong before I moved to Vancouver. So when I first came to Vancouver, I just came here for a grade 12 high school, and it was really great at first. I met some really good friends. I was really happy. I almost forgot about this whole dieting mindset. I was just eating intuitively. I wasn't thinking about my weight or anything because I was in a boarding school and I was just eating whatever they provide us, right? So I didn't really have to worry about like me restricting my food and stuff. I was also in the swimming team, so I was able to like focus my exercise program on performance and being better at swimming. However, after a couple months of having this really good like environment, I started developing some really unhealthy relationships with friends, ex-boyfriends and whatnot, and they were really toxic. And at that point I was really depressed at one point. I didn't really want to admit it, and I turned back to food for comfort, and I was just using food as like an outlet for me to hide myself. And obviously I gained a lot of weight, so I gained the whole 20 pounds back and more. Probably I try not to weigh myself that much at that point, but I could physically tell that the weight was on me. Everyone could tell that I was gaining weight, but I didn't really want to admit that it was because of binge eating. And then fast forward a couple months later, when I graduated grade 12, got accepted to university and everything was great. I went back to Hong Kong for a couple months, just a summer break before I started college. I didn't have the binge eating habits anymore. I remember I was just being myself with my family, enjoying my time with them, And that's also the summer where I started lifting weights at the gym. So that's the summer where everything started for me. Remember, I just joined like a gym that has like some sort of fitness classes. They have some lifting classes and stuff, so I just joined them. I took a whole year and a half off from tracking any types of food. I didn't think about what I was eating. I was just eating intuitively. And fast forward to I turned 19 and I moved out to an apartment instead of living in college dorms and stuff. And I remember I had like a lot of freedom around my food. I kind of started going to a new gym where I saw like a lot of fitness girls, if that makes sense. They all look really good, and I started like using Instagram, social media, and kind of search up like workouts and like fitness inspirations and stuff. And I remember I started having bad body image again because I felt like I wasn't good enough in a way, that I wasn't lean enough or I wasn't muscular enough, all that. And at that time I was thinking maybe it's time for me to go back on the diet and see what I can achieve and how I can look like. I really wanted to look like some certain girls on Instagram. So I started my diet again. And this time I was really strict with my diet again. At least I wasn't eating like 500 calories, but I remember I just started tracking macros on like MyFitnessPal, but I was having like 1300 calories or 1400 calories or so. I was still trying to restrict my food all the time. And those binge eating thoughts sort of came back, if that makes sense. So I remember I had days where I finished all my food like at the end of the day. I just really wanted to eat more. I was just super hungry all the time. So I binge eat like anything that I could find, like from cereal to fruits, to crackers, to chips, like anything I could find. So it could be like healthy foods or unhealthy food. And at one point I did try to purge, but luckily that didn't happen. So that sort of continued for like a couple months. It was my first time relapsing back to my binge eating disorder, and I didn't really want to admit it. Like at that point I was like, it has been so long since I restricted my food. Like I didn't understand why I was at that point again. I was really frustrated with myself after recovering from my first time having binge eating. Like I relapsed and I just thought to myself, it's just overeating, like it's not binge eating. But after a couple months I just had to admit that I really need to take actions to change, and if I want to develop a healthy relationship with food again and not be consumed and so obsessed with food anymore. This is the part you guys have been waiting for. Like, how did I actually get over or stop binge eating for good? It has been almost a year and a half to 2 years since I had a binge, and I haven't had those thoughts in a very long time. And even if I have like a cheat meal or like if I go out for family events and stuff, I never had the thoughts of binging anymore, which I never thought that I could get there. So it's really exciting. Like it's a huge milestone for me. So I'm gonna share my top 5 tips of how I actually got better and stopped binge eating for good. So my first tip is to talk to someone about it. So I know it's really hard to talk to someone about your binge eating. Like people probably don't even know what binge eating means, right? And then when you talk to someone about it, it kind of means that you are admitting that you have binge eating, which is kind of hard to do, especially when you are struggling with it. But my first time around of binge eating, I didn't talk to anyone about it, and I just sort of like deal with it myself. And I think that was one of the reasons why I started relapsing after a year. So my second time around, I talked to the people that I trusted. I remember I talked to my mom about it. I told her that I had this episode where I couldn't stop eating, and I told her that I have been struggling with this for a very long time, and she was really understanding. I remember whenever I had those thoughts, I would try to call her and talk to her and Skype her, and she would be very supporting. I also talked to my boyfriend about it, and he was very supporting too. So whenever I had those thoughts, I would just be very honest with him and tell him that I'm struggling a little bit today, so he would be there and just be there for me. And I also told my very good friends about it, and they were very supportive. And I'm very grateful and happy that I have those people in my life that would support me no matter what and be very understanding about it. Even though they didn't really understand what binge eating is, they would research, they would try to find ways to kind of help me and just talk to me about it. So I felt like I wasn't alone anymore, and that really helped. So my second tip is quit dieting. So if you're struggling with like binge eating, purging, bulimia and stuff, you just have to stop being in deficit and stop trying to lose weight, because the first thing that caused your binge eating, most likely is because of a restrictive diet. So what I did was I stopped being in deficit anymore. I remember I did a reverse diet with my coach, and that really helped, and using that flexible dieting approach, but it might not work for everyone, so that's why I'm not specifically talking about flexible dieting here. But flexible dieting and macro tracking really helped me. But instead of using flexible dieting to lose weight, I used it to reverse diet and build my calories back up to maintenance and surplus, so that I could just focus on having a healthier relationship with food and just focus on my strength at the gym. And my third tip is journaling. So journaling really helps me because I remember I was writing all my thoughts when I had those binge eating episodes. I remember when I was deep in my binge eating, I would write a paragraph about how I felt that day every single night and every single morning. So every night I would be like, I had those thoughts today, but I didn't act on them. Or I would write down like, I'm really struggling today, but I'm glad that I got through it. If I did have a binge eating episode, then I would write about how I feel and what I can do better. In the morning, I would normally just write down how I'm feeling, what I'm grateful for, and just in general help me a lot with my mindset around food. So if you're struggling, I highly recommend you like starting a journal about like your relationship with food, and just write down how you feel every single day, and that would really help. And my fourth tip is distraction. So instead of being alone all the time, like go out with your friends. Like I really like to just hang out with my boyfriend. Having him around really helps, just because he is very supportive and he's very understanding. You can also just go out with your friends, plan out more little fun trips with your friends, and just trying to like stop focusing so much on food and just focus on the time with your friends. And that really helped me, because when I was having my binge eating, I remember I was being alone all the time and I felt really lonely, and I just wanted to use food to kind of like make me feel a little better at that point. And just having all these like supportive people around me really just helped to distract myself. Like I'm not even thinking about food and stuff anymore. I was just thinking about how to have a good time and how to have fun with my friends instead. And my last tip, it may or may not work for you, but for me is lifting weights. So going to the gym, focusing on my strength and building lean muscles really helped me. I shifted my focus from wanting to be very like skinny and small to like I wanted to be muscular and strong at the gym, and that really helped me because I was just focusing on my strength, and I celebrate those wins instead of focusing on how my body looks like or how small I look. And that might not work for you, so find something that you like, find a new hobby. So lastly, I'm going to talk about the resources that really helped me. The first book is called Brain Over Binge, and that's the book that like changed the game for me. It talked about how the whole binge cycle started, talked about what the actionable steps that you need to take in order to stop binge eating. So I would highly recommend you checking out that book. They also have a podcast that really helped me too. I remember I was just listening to it when I had those thoughts in my head when I was really struggling. Just putting on the headphone and listening to that podcast helped me a lot. So I will put all the resources down below, but let me know if you have any questions, and like and subscribe if you enjoy my content, and I will talk to you guys soon.